Hi, my name is Stephanie Arbrough from Portage Consulting, and this is the first video in my free 6-part video series all about banking in QuickBooks. Rather than telling you about everything you'll learn, we're just going to jump right into this valuable content. Let's get started. So the first thing that you'll notice about QuickBooks is that there are many different ways to record an individual transaction. No one way is right or wrong necessarily, but there are shortcuts to make things faster. So during these lessons, we're going to talk about the easiest and most logical and the shortest way to record transactions. Starting on your home page, let's take a look at the check register. The check register is similar to your physical checkbook register that some of you may use to balance your checkbook. The idea of the check register in QuickBooks is the same. It's where all of your banking transactions for each individual account are recorded, and it's where you'll find the most accurate balance for your account at any given time. So you'll see all of these transactions are recorded here in my checking account, and I've got my running balance here on the side. Down here at the bottom is my current most up-to-date balance. So let's back out of there for a second. Go back to the home page. So there are essentially 4 different ways to record checks or banking debit transactions into the check register. Today we're going to talk about 3 of those ways, and then the last one we'll cover in a later on video. The first method to record transactions in the check register is to manually enter a transaction. You would use this method to enter items such as debit card charges, online purchases, automatic drafts, things like that. So in order to do that, you're going to go here on the home page to Write Checks. First thing you're going to do is make sure that you're in the right bank account. So if you click on this drop down, you can see that I have 3 different bank accounts set up. I've got my petty cash fund, my checking account, and my savings account. And I'm working in my checking account right now, so just make sure that that one is selected. And that is my default account. So it's usually going to go to that, but I always just make sure just to double check. So right here, I'm going to uncheck this print later because this is actually not a transaction that I'm going to print at all because this is something that has already happened. I'm just recording the transaction. Under the check account number, the check number, I'm going to enter DBT for a debit card charge. You could use a different acronym, whatever you're comfortable with. That's what I use to denote that I'm using my debit card. The date on this transaction was 9/23/2016, and it was to Shell Oil. So I purchased some gas for $30. And you'll notice here when I put in my vendor that it automatically pulled up the expense account down here under expenses. So if it doesn't pull that up, you would just tab over here and select that. Let's just fill that in. Automobile expense, it came up, and I just want it under automobile expense. So then we put in our amount for the transaction, which was $30. That filled in automatically down here in the $30, and I can put in a memo if I'd like. So fuel purchase. This particular expense is not tied to any particular customer or job, and it is not billable. So essentially at this point, I am done recording the transaction. Now you'll note that I have a memo field here next to the expense, and then I also have a memo field up here on the what looks like a check. This memo field right here is not typically used on a debit card transaction. This one down here is what goes into your register. The memo up here is what would actually be printed on the check. So since this is not a true check, we're not going to use that. Okay, so right here I'm done, and now I can either hit Save and New, which would take me to this page again, and so I could enter another transaction, or I can hit Save and Close, and that will take me back to the previous page that I was on. So I'm going to hit Save and Close for right now and go back to the home page. So there you go. We have recorded one transaction into QuickBooks. The second method to record transactions in the check register is to record a handwritten check. And this would be if you wrote a check outside of QuickBooks, whether it was handwritten or through any other software that is not tied to QuickBooks. And then you just need to enter the check into QuickBooks. So the method is pretty much identical to what we just did with the debit card transaction. So you would go back here to write checks. And then under this check number, you want to make sure that you put in the check number that you actually used, and that way you can match it up when you get your bank statement later on. So this one, let me just find my transaction, was check number 1002, and that was on 9/28/2016. Just a quick note right here. If you noticed when I typed that in, I didn't actually type in any slashes for the date. I didn't format it at all. I just typed in 09/28/2016. And then as soon as I hit tab, QuickBooks formats that for me. So just a little quick, efficient way to type in your dates without having to format them properly. QuickBooks will do that for you. So this check is to Johnson's Repair, and it was for $135. Okay, and again, my account came up automatically, or I could select whatever I wanted it to. I could back out of that and type in my own account. And QuickBooks, when that pulls up the automatic account down here, what it does is it remembers what you coded that to the previous time. So I have paid Johnson's Repair before and wrote that to repairs and maintenance. And so QuickBooks remembered that and just auto-filled it for me. You can turn that off in your settings so that you have to put in the account every single time. But I like it because it makes it more efficient when I'm recording transactions from places that I purchase from often, such as Shell or Johnson's Repair or Staples or things like that. Okay, and in my memo, I'm going to type this in. Invoice payment, again, not tied to a particular customer or job. It's not billable, so we're done. So recording handwritten checks are essentially the same as putting in a debit card transaction. You just want to make sure that number is correct. So we're going to save and close here. And then our final method is to actually print a check from QuickBooks. Now, with this method, you do have to have QuickBooks compatible checks, and you do have to have your printer set up to be able to print from QuickBooks. And we'll go over all of that in detail later on in the setup of the QuickBooks Mastery course. But just for right now, just know that those are the two precursors to needing or to being able to write checks from QuickBooks. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Write Checks. Let me get my transaction pulled up. Okay, we're going to write it from the checking account. And rather than putting in a number here, since we haven't printed it and we don't know what our number is, we're going to click this Print Later button. And then that changes the number to print. Which means that we're going to print it at a later time, and then it'll add QuickBooks will add the check number automatically later on. So my date here is actually the same, 9/28/2016. I'm going to go to Excel Energy for $667.89, and that is paying my utility bill. Okay, and now for this, I actually need to split this into two accounts because this particular bill was for two different items. So one of them was my normal utilities, and that was for $167.89. That was for my utilities. And then the other $500, this was my first bill from Excel, and this was for a security deposit. So I don't want to expense it all to utilities. I want to record the $500 deposit as an asset. So I have I have paid that deposit and they will owe that back to me eventually. So I'm going to record that as a security deposit. Okay. And you can add as many line items as you want to. If you need to break a bill up into 5, 10, 15 different accounts, you can do that in QuickBooks and then print it all on one check. Similarly, if you need to pay multiple invoices and put different invoice numbers on each one, you can do that in QuickBooks as well. So something else about this this check here is I'm going to actually physically print this check and then mail it off. So right here under my address, Xcel Energy doesn't have an address in QuickBooks yet. So when I set up this vendor, I did not add in an address for whatever reason. I probably just didn't know the address at that point in time when I set them up. So now I need to actually add the address so it will print on our check, and that way when we print the check, then we're done. We don't have to add anything else. So just right here, right on the check, I'm going to add in PO Box. So that is the mailing address that I need to send this to. And then under the memo, now remember this memo line right here is actually what's going to print on the check. So I want to add in my account number so that when I send in this check to Xcel, they have all of my account information, and if they lose the stub that I send in with it, they'll still have my account number and it'll still be properly credited to my account. So I'm going to add in account number. Okay. And there we are done adding in our check. So from here we can save and close this and return to the home page. We can save and write a new check and keep going and finish all of our checks out at one time, or we can just go ahead and print it from right here. So if you're just doing a one-off check and just need to print really quickly, you can input it right here and then hit print, and then you'll be able to print that check and move on with your life. But if you are doing a multi-check run, so for a lot of companies, you'll do that once a week and actually print several checks at once, making it a little bit more efficient, then we would just want to save this one and move on, print the rest of our checks later on. So we're going to save and close here. Now this asks me if I would like to save this new information. This is talking about the address that I entered in. I changed that address. Either I changed it or I added it. I added it on this particular one, but if you were to change the address, it will ask the same thing. So I do want that information to appear next time, and I want QuickBooks to remember the address for this vendor. So we're going to say yes. So now next time I go in and put in Xcel, it will autofill that for me. Okay, so now we have recorded the check to be printed, but we haven't printed it yet. So now we're going to go back here on the home screen, down here to print checks, and select my checking account, and see right here I have 3 checks that are outstanding that I need to print, and one of them is that Xcel Energy that we just entered, and the other 2 I also need to print. So let's see, I need to start my checks on 1003. Make sure that first check number is accurate for what you're actually putting into the printer, and then it will just, QuickBooks will just count up for you. So it'll print the first one, it'll print this ASAC at 1003, Xcel Energy will be 1004, and Chase Bank will be 1005. So we're going to hit OK. That'll bring up my printer. We're going to hit print. Oh, and this is telling me I already have something recorded as 1003. I have probably just recorded something incorrectly, or I have duplicated that check number, one of those 2 items, but that's okay. We're just going to hit keep number, or at this point in time you could check and make sure that that was where your check numbers actually started, and just double check and make sure. But that is where mine started, so I'm going to hit keep number. And then this screen pops up, and what this is asking is for you to double check your checks after they've printed and see if any of them need to be reprinted. So if you accidentally printed them upside down, or if things didn't line up properly, or whatever the case may be, if something didn't print correctly, then you can check right here to reprint them. Or if everything is fine, you can just select OK. So just to show you what that'll look like, I'm just going to select this one to reprint, and OK. So 2 of them printed just fine. The first one didn't print right. And all that does is that puts that check back into the print queue. So right there, that ASAC went right back into the print queue. So we can reprint it again and go on. So we're not going to print that one again. Okay, so those are the 3 main ways to record checks into your check register. Another item that you would often want to record into your check register would be a transfer. So if you were transferring funds from one bank account to another bank account, there's a quick and easy way to do that in QuickBooks as well. It's not on the home page. We're going to go up here to Banking and Transfer Funds. And again, just put in our date. We're going to transfer it from our checking account to our savings account. And I'm going to transfer $500. And then you can put in a memo. Funds transfer is fine with me. And then when you hit save and close, what that does is that records that transaction both in your checking account and your savings account. So in just one quick, easy move, you've transferred those funds. You've recorded the transfer of funds from your checking account and that the subsequent deposit into your savings account. So save and close, and you're done with that one. Finally, the last thing we're going to talk about in regards to recording transactions is deposits into your checking account. So in order to do this, let's go to Record Deposits, and you'll notice right here on this little vault thing, I have a 2. So that tells me that I have 2 outstanding deposits ready to go, ready to be recorded. So we're just going to click on that and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so that automatically pops up and shows me that I have these 2 checks that I have recorded that have been received by me from my clients. I've received $225 from Texas Lighting Co. and $350 from the Yellow Daisy. So these are payments from customers to me that I've received a check, but I haven't deposited them into my bank account yet. So this would happen if I received the check. So I've marked the invoice from the client as paid, so they don't owe me money anymore. However, it has not gone into the bank account yet. It's sitting over on my desk. The check is sitting over on my desk. So I wouldn't want to record it in the bank account just yet until it actually goes into the bank account. So these are what are considered undeposited funds. And QuickBooks reminds you over and over and over that you have these undeposited funds, which is great to me. Okay, so I'm going to deposit actually both of these. So I'm going to select both of these, and that deposit was on the 22nd. Memo deposit is fine. Okay, so it automatically put those onto my deposit slip and totaled it up for me. Now, I also have $100 of cash that I need to deposit into my account. So I had some petty cash that was excess, and I don't have a check number for that because it's cash. We're going to put in our payment method as cash, and it was $100 even. Okay, and so this is the actual deposit that is going to my bank, or in this case has already been deposited into my bank. So I deposited $675 into my bank account. I don't have any cash back, so we're good here. Everything looks good. I've got it on the right checking account. Date is correct. I've got a memo in here. We're good to go. So we're going to save and close that one. That wraps up part 1, entering transactions. Today, we learn how to enter transactions into your check register in 3 different ways, as well as transfer money between accounts and make a deposit into your bank account. I hope you enjoyed the first lesson in my QuickBooks Mastery course. I have 5 more free videos to share with you, and each one is just as valuable as this one was. These videos will be delivered straight to your email inbox. The lessons will be delivered once per day for the next 5 days. Seeing as how these lessons are very quick-paced, I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information at one time. Now scroll down and get started on your homework for the day in the QuickBooks Masters Facebook group. See you in tomorrow's lesson, Importing Transactions from Online Banking.